Good afternoon, everybody. So actually, we were trying to go from the verses, but since we are not being able to finish each and every verse, if you have any questions, I'll give you some minutes to talk about any questions that you have on the verse, specific numbers. After some time, first I'll be talking about some of the verses. I think, which number was it? Okay. Okay, there was a question from 109 to 114, right? So I'll be talking about that also. And there is this. I just said from here to here it's about this, here to here it's about this, right? Okay. So verse number 52, this is important. Verse number 52. Liberation depends upon the individual himself. In this individual, there is no need whatsoever to associate with others. Thus, exert yourself in pursuit of the four truths through listening, morality, and dhyana. So this is basically saying the Buddha himself, right? Buddha himself cannot take you away from the suffering. How you liberate yourself, as we are talking about how to work towards liberation. The liberation is on your own hands, right? It's on your own hands, how you liberate yourself. Liberate meaning liberating yourself from suffering, so that you have control over yourself. So it's basically saying you have the responsibility over your own actions, right? Whatever action you do, the experience of it, consequences of it, you are going to experience. So it's on your hand. If you work towards liberation, which is through, first for a beginner, it's through morality, which is listening and morality, right? Listening, of course, if you don't listen to a teacher or a friend who shows you the path, you won't know, right? A lot of our knowledge depends on listening and so on. So listening is very important. And having morality. The morality is like the 10 virtuous deeds and non-virtuous deeds, also morality, right? Refraining from the 10 non-virtuous deeds, non-virtuous deeds, and indulging in the virtuous deeds. So these are the basic steps that you can take towards being working towards liberation, right? When we think of working towards liberation, you must not think jumping from one side to another. Like, you must think as if you are building a house. First, the foundation must be strong. Then if the foundation is strong, then of course the house itself will be considered strong, right? So first the foundation is morality, right? So this, then from here, yesterday 55, verse number 55, this is basically saying about our fragile human life, which I have talked about yesterday. Life being susceptible to many harms is more impermanent than a wind-blown bubble of water. Most wondrous is the leisure of inhaling one breath, having exhaled another, and awakening from the sleep. So fragile human life is like that. While sleeping, we may pass away, right? We may not be able to wake up. And if we breathe, we may not be, if we exhale, we may not be able to inhale. That's just one step of death that we have, right? So it's basically saying the fragileness of a... From here, it's the... what do we say? From, let's say, from verse number 63, from verse number 63 to 64, is the basic samsaric sufferings that it's saying, right? So from verse number 66 is the bane the 6 sufferings, the bane of uncertainty and the bane of being dissatisfied. So from verse number 65, 66 till verse number, let's say, verse number 73, yeah, till here is the 6 sufferings. And okay, from verse number 77, it's about the hell realms, right? Suffering of the hell realms. So I won't be going much from verse number 77 till verse number, let's say, verse number 88. This is the hell realm suffering, right? So from verse number 89 is the 89 and 90, right? It's the suffering of animals if you are born as an animal. Then 91, 92, from verse number 91 to verse number 97 is the suffering of hungry ghosts, right? From verse number 98 till verse number 101 is the suffering of celestial beings. And so from here from here it's basically saying how you can attain liberation, right? So verse number 109, that's the one that's the question was asked, right? So the verse number 109, 1010 and 1111, I will be talking about this. The Muni declared from ignorance arises karma, from that consciousness, and from that name and form, from that 6 faculties, and from them contact. From contact arises sensation. Based on sensation comes craving. From craving originates grasping. From that existence, and from existence comes birth. When there is birth, there arises grief and sickness, aging and destruction, the fear of death, and so on. A huge mass of suffering by stopping birth, all this will cease. This dependent origination is the most cherished and the profound treasure of the Jina speech. Whoever is able to see this sees the Buddha, supreme knower of reality. So this verse is very important, right? For the to know about how you get birth, right? How you become reborn as a human or so on. It's dependent of this. So what it's saying, this one is saying about the 12 dependent arising, right? So there are 12 dependent arising. It's showing the cause and effect of the 12 dependent arisings. From ignorance arises karma. That arises, of course, we have talked about it a lot. When we are ignorant of the fact that we are dependent on others, right, we tend to harm others. We tend to get angry at others because we have this independent, we are ignorant of the fact that we are interdependent, and we think that we are independent. That's where everything arises, right? That's where war between countries arise, because the country is thinking, I'm independent enough, right? But when we realize that we are dependent on a lot of factors, a lot of other beings, then we will know that it's not the case. So from ignorance arises karma, meaning from ignorance, if you are ignorant of the fact that getting angry and all causes a bad experience for us, then it will create us doing the deed of anger, right? Getting angry and all. So that's what it's saying. From ignorance arises karma. Okay, from karma arises consciousness, meaning the karma will leave an imprint on your consciousness or on your mind, which will be carried on to the next life, right? So till here it's about one life. So in this life, this is basically saying how we commit karma and how the karma makes us take rebirth, right? So after that, the karma will leave an imprint on the consciousness, and from that consciousness will go to the next life, right? When that consciousness goes to the next life, there will come name and form. When you are being conceived in the mother's womb, then the child will have a form, right? The form will start to develop, and then consciousness start to develop. And from that, the six faculties are like when a child is being conceived on a mother's womb, then slowly it will start to feel, right? The baby will start to feel, and he will have the sensory organs will develop slowly. So after the sensory organs have developed, after being born, then comes contact, right? The sensory consciousness comes into contact with the sensory objects. So when the sensory consciousness comes into the contact with the sensory objects, that's contact, right? Contact between the sensory object and the sensory mind sensory mind meaning our sensory mind of seeing and the sensory hearing. That contact comes to the object, right? Sensory objects like form, sound, smell, and etc. like that. When we have that contact, if the contact is pleasure, if contact is pleasant, we will generate attachment towards it, right? From contact arises sensation. Our sensation may be pleasant or not pleasant, right? So if you have based on sensation comes about carving, meaning if you have a pleasant sensation when engaging with that object, then of course craving will come, right? If you have a pleasant sensation when you are engaging with the object, then the craving of wanting that object, wanting to be near that object will come, right? So if the sensory is not pleasant, then anger and wanting to be away from that, craving to be away from that object will come, right? So it's basically saying after having the sensation with the object, it will arise your craving, right? How much ever you do with it. So from craving originates grasping, meaning when we have craving, we will grasp for that, right? Want to get it, so it will come like that. And from that again existence. So comes, after that existence comes birth, and after birth again comes ignorance and karma. So when there is birth, when we be born to all of this dual dependent arising, then of course there will be, because our body is made out of many chemicals. I'll be talking a little bit scientific, because I know a chemical biologist who is there. So as our body is composed of a lot of chemicals, if there is a little bit of, not conflict, like balance, imbalance between the chemicals, then we may get sick, right? So because our body is composed of that. So from sickness, of course we get sickness. As we are born, we age, right? And fear of death, then we get old, then we die again. Again, this 12 depend. You may have seen the wheel of samsara, right? In the wheel of samsara, there are 12 representations of the 12 dependent arising, right? So if you see ignorance, there is a round, and there is 12 of that representing each of the 12 dependent arisings, right? So then this is also a way to think about suffering. Like if you think about it, in this we have been born to the 12 dependent arising in this life. After that, again in this life we are committing ignorance, and again karma, again consciousness, and it will come again. Then we'll take a birth again. Again, when that birth comes, again it's about ignorance, again karma, and again, if you think of it, you will get tired, right? You'll get tired and you really want to do something about it. So it's basically saying about that. So by stopping birth, all this will cease, meaning if you stop of taking birth by the 12 dependent arisings, if you stop by practicing emptiness and compassion and so on, if you are able to liberate yourself from being birth, and it is considered you, right, you being liberated, so you won't have to go to all this suffering again. So this dependent origination is one of the most cherished and most, what do we say, most profound treasure of the what Buddha has said, right? Because this shows the dependent origination on a general level, right? Because we are all dependent. So that's what this is saying. And voice number something. Rejoice at, oh yeah, and the one question was about voice number 120. Rejoice at all the virtues of all beings and dedicate your own threefold good deeds to the attainment of Buddha. Then with this mass virtue become a master of yoga. So this is basically saying that we must not be jealous that somebody else is doing good, but we must rejoice that if somebody else is doing good, if you rejoice, that's beneficial to you. If you get jealousy, it's just a jealousy that's making you uncomfortable and, what do you say, uneasy, right? So it's basically saying that. So today, actually, I was going to, yesterday I had talked a little about the precious human rebirth and how fragile this is. So today, actually, I was going to talk about little about impermanence. Of course, impermanence is like something that we experience in a daily basis, right? Every day passing away, every moment we are changing, aren't we? Every moment, like every second we are getting older a second, right? So impermanence is like that. So from the time that we are born till the time that we are going to pass away, we are changing, right? Because impermanence has two good things that you could think about. One is that because of the impermanence, we are able to elevate the suffering and stop the suffering from occurring again because of the impermanence of the cause, right? Because of the cause, if you are able to dispel the cause and destroy the cause for the bad experience, then we would not be suffering. So impermanence has this part also. But impermanence has a bad part also. As everything changes, we are also getting old, right? So that's the sad part, and there is the good part also. So thinking about impermanence is very important. Then after that, what we must think, once we have gotten a certain type of not wanting the suffering, right? Then you must think in a general way about the samsaric sufferings, right? The samsaric sufferings cause us a lot of suffering, right? Wherever you go, you won't find any, I'm not saying that in the general world, if you go to somebody, you'll find that they'll have some type of suffering, right? So that's some general samsaric suffering. After contemplating and thinking about it more and more, then generally you would, about each and every REM's suffering, then generally you will feel the want to, in everyday life, you would want to renounce the suffering, right? Renounce the daily doings of yourself. So that's the point when you attain the renunciation, like wanting to being liberated from the sufferings every day, spontaneously, right? That's when you really are able to really walk towards liberation, right? Unless you have a genuine, spontaneous feeling of renunciation, you won't be able to walk towards liberation. We have a, not a spontaneous, we have a unspontaneous generation of what do we say, wanting to renounce, that we have to create ourselves, right? It's not spontaneous. So how to get spontaneous renunciation is you contemplating more on the sufferings, right? Then you, as in the Lord Nagarjuna, there's one text called become disgusted with the sufferings of samsara. So at that point you must become disgusted with the sufferings of samsara and want to renounce it, right? And how to renounce it? To contemplating on the sufferings. After that, once you have gotten renunciation, right, you spontaneous renunciation has been arised in your mind, then we must think how, is it for yourself? Of course, for yourself it's important. Then we must think of the general world, right? Yesterday we talked about rebirth a little bit, right? If we have rebirth, then we must think, okay, we have taken so many rebirths, right? We have taken endless times that we have taken rebirth. Then if you have taken rebirth, then generally everybody becomes, there is a chance that everybody has been our mother, isn't there? Because there's no guarantee of saying that somebody is not going to be my mother, because our birth is countless. Like the times that we have taken rebirths are countless, isn't it? If that is countless, then there is no saying that this person has not become my mother, this person has not what do we say, has not been my mother, right? So even the ant that you are trying to kill, or a termite that you are trying to kill, may have been your mother in the previous lives and also be your mother in your next lives, right? So if you, as long as you accept the fact that there is a rebirth, then this comes to the mind. Everybody is your mother, right? So when you think of everybody being your mother, all beings, recognizing all beings as your mother, then for our mother, we know that they do a lot for us, right? They are so kind to us, even though it doesn't mean that if your mother is not, suppose that ant is your mother, right? If that ant is not kind towards you right now, it's creating trouble in your house right now, it's not being kind to you, that doesn't mean that it hasn't been kind to you in your previous lives, right? Suppose think of it as this. Suppose you have a mother who has gone to a, I'm not saying that it should be, but if somebody is your mother who has gone to a vegetative state, right? A vegetative state meaning like they don't know, or there's a sickness. What was that sickness called? Amnesia, not amnesia. Dementia, yeah, dementia and amnesia. Okay. Oh, Alzheimer, yeah, Alzheimer disease. If your mother has Alzheimer's disease, then that mother will generally forget you, right? There's a chance that she may forget who you are. That doesn't mean that you do not help them, right? That doesn't mean that you do not forget their kindness, what kindness they did to you on your young life when you are young, and forget of being kind to them, right? It's not that even though they may have forgotten you, you will still be kind to them and work towards them. Exactly like that, all the other beings that are your mother have been your mother, but they have forgotten because such a long time has passed, right? So recognizing that all beings are your mothers and cultivating a remembrance of their kindness is one of the most important things that we do, right? We should do. And after their kindness, because of their kindness, how can we repay them, right? Of course, if your mother is so kind to you, if they are in pain, you would want to elevate that pain. You wouldn't you? You would wish to be able to take away that pain, right? Be able to help them with their pain. So you must have a wish to cultivate their pain, right? So when you develop a wish to cultivate their kindness, the only way that you can repair your mother's kindness is through practicing yourself and not harming others, right? Not harming others as they are your mother, and not harming others, and helping them in a general way, right? Of course, because there are countless living beings in this universe, we won't be able to help each and every one of them, but we can try to do to the living beings near us, right? Not harm them. That's one of the basic things that we should do, and we want to repay their kindness, right? So we must cultivate the want to repay their kindness, and we must have the intent to help them, right? Not just cultivating the kindness, and if we get the opportunity to help them, you must have the intent to help them. So in this, then after that, you must first, also this is important, because to us, we have lots of enemies or competitors, right, who we compete with. We have a lot of this. So first and foremost, for us, it's important for us to have a equal view of every living being, right? Considering every living being as a equal. Like there should not be an attachment towards your friends and family and a resentment towards your enemy. You must consider them the equal, because there are many reasons, like why should we consider our enemies as our family member, right? There are many reasons why you should consider them as that, but I won't go much into that. But you must generate compassion towards them. So after having the compassion, then cultivating the want, really not just thinking about it, wanting to act upon it, right? And acting upon it. Like the way that we can do it is while praying and all, we can dedicate for the well-being of all the sentient beings. That's the way that we can repay them, right? Of course, we don't have the capacity to, or the, ability to help each and every living being, but we have that much that we can do. So it's important that we do that. And Also, basically what I was saying is you trying to cultivate your bodhicitta, right? Bodhicitta through this 7 cause and effect. I don't know if I talked about all the 7, but these are the ways that you could cultivate. If you really feel that another living being is your mother, of course you would have the commitment, you would have the motivation to help them if you see them suffering, right? So this is one of the most strongest parts of cultivating that, which is passed on by, I think, Asanga, right? So, and one is changing oneself and the other, right? This is a little bit harder way of practicing bodhicitta, but what it actually means is putting yourself in the other's shoes, right? Thinking the other as your own self, meaning I and the other person, whoever is suffering, we are indifferent. Is it indifferent? Yeah, right, not different. We are indifferent. It's the same. He doesn't want suffering. He wants to happiness. Even I want happiness. I don't want suffering, right? So that's the basic thing that we know. So we see that I and the other person, right? I and the other person are indifferent in that regard. So when we see them as that, and we regard them as a real human being, the basic emotion of wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, is the same. So when we see that, we would have a type of feeling not wanting to hurt them, right? So this is the way that you could generally practice. If you get angry on somebody, and somebody gets angry on you and is scolding you, you could practice that, right? We two are the same, because they don't want suffering, they are scolding me, right? And because they want happiness, and it's the same for me, right? So it's important that we should practice our minds like that. Also, so that's how we should practice bodhicitta. And after practicing, even if we cannot practice the full and really bodhicitta, we can have the unspontaneous and the, contrived and bodhicitta. Contrived bodhicitta through our own means, that we can think of it like that. And wanting to, may I attain enlightenment, wanting that, right? So that I could show the way. Of course, because of us not being enlightened, we are not able to show all the way. We may be able to, because of what Buddha has taught us, we may be able to just show some way, but we are not able to do it in a skillful way, right? So the only way for us to do that is to attain enlightenment. So even if you cannot do that, the basic things that you should try to have a contrived bodhicitta, right? So one of the way of this thinking that, and one of the way of thinking, after that we must of course go into emptiness, right? Unless you practice emptiness, right? Emptiness, there is no way that you could attain liberation, right? Even the two listener and the Patriya Buddhas, even for them to attain liberation, you must practice emptiness, right? So what is emptiness that we ask? I talked about it a little. The emptiness is, everything is empty, right? Now, you must not be caught up too much in the words, because emptiness itself is a concept that our, what do we say? What mind is that? Our conceptual mind cannot fully comprehend, right? So, we see everything as not being empty, right? Everything being, this empty meaning, of course, if I say this room is empty, then that statement, if you focus too much on the words, it will feel like, what is this guy saying, right? If I say this room is empty. Of course, this room is not empty, this room is full with people. The emptiness here is not the emptiness that we usually use on our words. What this emptiness means is it being empty of its intrinsic nature, right? It being empty of independent, right? It's not independent. It's being empty of the not depending on others, right? It being empty means it's not independent. Emptiness here means that, right? So you must keep that in mind whenever we say something is empty, it's dependent on others. You must keep that in mind. It's empty in the sense that it's not independent, right? If you say it's independent, then that becomes like a, if it is independent, then that's not being empty, but it being empty says that it is dependent on others, right? So, so everything is empty. Now, I must back up that claim or statement with a reason, right? So, I just gave a perspective of durian being empty of its nature, right? By it's depending on our, what do we say? It's depending on our perspective, how we perceive the durian, and it's depending on our perspective. Exactly like that, ourselves, we are empty of nature, right? Empty of our intrinsic nature. When we think of the I, right? When we think, I am angry, I want this, that I, we see it as a fully fledged, something that's very hard and not being able to destroy it, right? So we must dissect it. We must dissect it slowly, right? Dissect it where the I is. And when we see that the I is empty of its nature, and we must also know that I is just a label that is dependent on all of the five, not all and each and every one, but dependent on the aggregates, right? If we, I is the label that is dependent on the aggregates. So what do I mean by I is the label that is dependent on the aggregates? I will try to give you another example, right? So let's say, okay, this chair, for example, right? It's not chair, sorry. I'm labeling everything wrong. This table, for example. This table, for example, when we look at it, right? We look at it, it seems independent, right? Not dependent on anything. But when we dissect it, we'll find that it's dependent on a lot of things, right? I'm not saying the dependent of its staying, but when we dissect the chair, it's, what do we say, table limbs? Not limbs, legs, right? Table legs. Then if you go more and more inside, is the table legs the table? No, right? If we, what do we say, break it down and put it on the side, we have not assembled it. At that point of time, is the table there? That would be the question that we must ask first. When the table is not assembled, its legs on the one side, it's, what do we say, this tabletop? Yeah, the tabletop on the one side and the drawers on the one side. At that point, is the table there? Of course, there isn't any table. Is there? No, this table. I'm not saying there's no table in the world, but this table, at that point of time, is the table there? Then we would say no, right? So when does the table come into existence? When does it come into existence? When we put them together, right? But the shape of the table is not the table, right? Why? Because when we put everything apart, the legs, tabletop, and everything apart, the shape is still there. The shape that's taking up is the shapes that are on the legs and the tabletop is the same shape, right? So the table comes into existence when we give it the name, label, right? When we label it. So it becomes a little confusing. This is one of the most debated in the monasteries also, like how to understand emptiness. Of course, because we have a conceptual mind, it's really hard, right, to understand. So one of the examples I may give is, suppose you have 3 rooms, right? Suppose you have three different rooms. One room, this room, you have named this as an altar. This room, you have named this as a dining room. This room, you have labeled it as a, what do you say? Living room? Yeah, living room. Yeah, living room. So that's just a label. If you put everything that's inside of this here, then later you can change this into the altar, prayer hall, right? And this as your dining hall, and this as your living room. Or you can put this as your dining room. It's just the label that changes, isn't it? So from this point of analyzing, we realize that prayer hall is not independent, right? Prayer hall is not independent. It's just a label that is there that's making us think it's independent. Also, when we look at things, our sensory mind of seeing, right? We'll see everything as being full and not dependent on anything. We have we see the intrinsic nature, right? But it's not the nature of it. So we must dissect each and every part and try to think of everything as a dependent. So when we think of everything as a dependent, what will happen is your self-grasping mind will grow lesser, and you would have lesser anger and everything like that. When you realize that everything is dependent, right? Then you wouldn't get angry on ants coming in your home or termites being on your home, because they are dependent on you, dependent on the things that you have, right? So that also helps. So working towards liberation, so as a summary, working towards liberation, the first step that you should take is refrain from doing bad deeds and indulge in the good deeds. That's the first step as a beginner, right? That's the first step. Morality is the basic step that you should take. Then after that, then after you have not indulged in it, indulge in the bad deeds and indulge more in the good deeds. I'm saying in a pathway type, okay? So after that, renunciation. Then how do we renounce? How do we create that spontaneous renunciation? Is we have to think much more on the suffering and the fragile human body, right? Precious human body, fragile human body, and the sufferings of the samsara, right? Sufferings of the samsara and the impermanence. Then when we contemplate so much on that, we would what do I say? We would gain a spontaneous renunciation mind. We would feel, I want to get rid of the samsara spontaneously, right? At that point of time, after spontaneous mind arises, then slowly you can work towards bodhicitta, right? Of course, we can work towards the contrived bodhicitta right now, but right now the bodhicitta I'm saying is the non-contrived bodhicitta, right? So we must have the compassion and the contrived bodhicitta that we do usually, right? Thinking of every mother beings as all sentient beings being happy and all. We should have that in our daily practices and so on. But if you want to work towards the uncontrived bodhicitta, thinking everybody as your mother, first to think everybody as your mother, you must have a genuine faith in the rebirth cycle, right? If you don't have the faith in the rebirth cycle, then thinking everybody as your mother will be hard. So when you gain towards that, then slowly works towards compassion and the 7 cause and effect, or the changing oneself and the other way, which is mentioned in the Lamrim text of the great treatise to part of enlightenment of Rinpoche. It's very clear that there. And after that, that still isn't the finished product, right? When you gain the bodhicitta, then only the wisdom part is able to fully liberate you. Even if you have the compassion part, right? Then if you do not have the emptiness part, then your self-grasping mind will not be destroyed. So it's very important to destroy that self-grasping mind, right? So how do we know that we can attain enlightenment? That's also one question that may pop up in your mind. So one of the answers is, think of an easy example and try to think of it as the same, right? When there is too much heat, and we feel so hot, what is it that we do? We on the AC and we make it cold, right? So we are destroying the cause for us to being hot, right? Us feeling hot. If you destroy the heat which is causing us to feel hot, then if we can do it in this manner, then of course in the subtle workings of the mind, if we destroy the cause for us suffering again and again, which is the anger, ignorance and attachment, these are causing, if you are able to generate the opposite of this, which is compassion and realizing emptiness and having the impermanence, realizing that impermanence, then these three won't arise. It is because it has an opposite that is as strong as it is, right? The cold and the hot is opposites. So when the cold becomes greater, the hot heat or the hot, right, warmness decreases. And when the warmness gets more, the coldness also decreases, right? It's because they are opposites of each other. Exactly like that, ignorance has an opposite, which is the emptiness part, right? And attachment and anger have their own opposites. So the root of our all suffering is ignorance. So we must focus more on how to destroy the ignorance. So that's the basic summary that you should take away. The most for the beginners, 10 virtuous and 10 non-virtuous deeds. refrain and indulge in this, right? And there is a practice which I think is good, which Atisha, for a beginner, when we get the negative emotion, right? If we try to remedy it there and there self, that's the best way to do it. Atisha used to bring a stupa with him everywhere he went, and wherever he committed a negative emotion arise or anything, he would put the stupa down, prostrate upon it, and remedy it, right, through the four powers. The four powers, of course, is a thing of mind, so you can do it whenever. So if a negative emotion like anger arises right now, you can decrease or remedy it by applying the four powers, right? Applying the four powers. I'm not saying that even when you are in work, that if you get angry with your boss, you prostrate and do it. I'm not saying like that. If you do like that, then of course you may get fired, which is worse. Not do it like that, but in your mind, you can do it, right? In your mind, you can do it. So one of the best discipline is that you should control your mind, right, from negative emotions. So that's the basic summary. So any questions?
Rinpoche, there was one question to ask about verse 120. Become a master of yoga in all worlds. So I think he wanted to request Rinpoche to elaborate on the master of yoga.
Okay. So become a master of yoga in all worlds of gods and humans for an immeasurable number of births, and protect many helpless beings with activities like those of Arya, Avalokitesvara, right? So this is basically saying this. Become a master meaning become enlightened, right? So become enlightened so that you can protect all the humans, all the gods, and all the helpless human beings with, like those of Avalokitesvara, like how the Bodhisattvas work, right? If you become a master in yoga, of course you are becoming enlightened. So he's basically, the Lord Nagarjuna is basically saying, become enlightened so that you can help a countless number of helpless beings, right? Countless number of helpless beings through your actions. So it's basically saying that. So any other questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, Colleen.
Hi, Rinpoche.
Hi.
So you mentioned that someone from the human being can go down to the lower realm. Likewise, someone from the lower realm can go to the human being, for example.
They can.
How is that so?
Could you repeat what you said again?
Okay. So like you mentioned, a human being in a higher realm can go down to a lower realm.
Yeah, yeah.
Like insect or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And say a lower realm can go into the higher realm.
Yeah, they can.
How is that possible?
It's possible because of our countless number of rebirths that we have taken, right? In the countless number of rebirths that we have taken, we are not just thinking about this life. We have taken countless number of rebirths in the previous lives. In the previous lives, we have also imprinted a lot of good karma and bad karma in our lives, right? Countless number. If you just count in one day, you would find that we have more than 1,000 karmas, right? 1,000 actions of good deeds and bad deeds we are imprinting on ourselves. So us going to the lower realm depends on what happens when you are on your dying bed, as we say it, right? When you are in a dying bed, if you are able to generate the good deeds, right, good deeds, then you would be able to go to a higher realm. But when an insect does that, because they don't have that much of a capacity to think like us, there is the, what do we say? Okay, thank you. Whichever of the good karma and the bad karma is stronger, whichever has a stronger imprint will come to fruition first. So suppose that being has like a good karma imprint first for a human being, before going to insect or so on. If you, before passing away, you having the bad, your bad emotions arising, right, then that may cause, even though you have a good imprint that's stronger, at the moment before you pass away, you having the bad emotion may cause you to go into the lower realms, right? But even then, that what do we say? That lower realm coming to the upper. Sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted. Higher realms. Higher realms is because like when we see the imprints, whichever imprint is stronger, right? If the good imprint is stronger, that will come up as a higher realm creature. So, I was trying to say that, now I remember. I got tongue twisted that I forgot what I was going to say. So it's this. You may have a good imprint, right? Your good imprint is stronger in this life, but at the moment of your dying, you may have a bad emotion that gets generated. So you may be born as a lower realm creature, but because of your imprint being stronger, when you pass away from that insect or like a lower realm creature, because of the weight of the good imprint being stronger, you may again be born as a higher realm creature. So it actually depends on a lot of factors. These are factors that even I don't understand a lot, right? So that's how a lower realm creature can come back to a higher realm creature. It depends on how much good karma and the imprints of the good karma. And if the imprints are the same, that depends what you did, which is much more stronger, right? Okay. Did that make sense? Okay. Okay.
Another question.
Okay.
Here some Buddhists say, if someone cannot give birth or doesn't want to give birth, then that person has more blessings.
That person cannot give birth?
Yeah, okay. Let's say a couple doesn't have any children.
Oh, a couple has any children.
Yeah.
Then?
So some Buddhists say that that couple has received more blessings.
Received more blessings?
Yeah, because I don't know.
Oh, got it. Not having children. I don't think. Depends on how you define blessing, right? Right. If you are thinking as a blessing, right, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you are talking as a blessing because they don't have to deal with the problem of bringing up a children, then that may be a blessing, right? That also depends on how you define blessing, because bringing up a child is, of course, very hard. So if that Buddhist is saying you are blessed because you are not having any child, because the bringing up of a child is very hard, very expensive experience person speaking. So if you define blessing as that, then that may be a blessing. But if you define blessing as, what do we say? If you look at it from a positive point of view, having a child and being proud of, not proud, let's say, showing them the right way, and if you consider this as a blessing, then that's a curse, right? Not having any child. Depends on how that person defined blessing. What was his perspective on saying that it's blessed?
More like spiritual blessings.
I don't think so. Like if they had said, I want a spiritual blessing so that I do not want to have a child, so maybe it's a spiritual blessing that whatever they wanted came into fruition, right? So they may regard it as a blessing, but I don't think we can regard anything as not anything, that thing like a definitive blessing, right? Definitive blessing would be like for something good, right? So not having child depends on the perspective also, right? A couple not having child, if a couple is like, if they both agree that they don't want to have a child, and bringing up child is expensive, as she said, and they have the agreement, then they would think it's a blessing, right? So there's no straight definition whether it's a real blessing or what that person meant. You should be asking that person, what do you meant by blessing? But I would say it depends, right, how you define blessing. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, Serene.
Hi, Rinpoche. I would like to ask you. I would like to ask you about phenomena.
Okay.
Not all phenomena are impermanent, right?
Not all phenomena are impermanent.
Yes.
If you are talking from the cause and effect point of phenomena, then everything is impermanent. If you are talking from not the cause and effect phenomena, that everything that exists, right, then the cessation of suffering, that is permanent. That is permanent. So it goes more into like cause and effect, right? If there is a cause and effect causing that phenomena, then that phenomena is impermanent.
So okay, then I would like to find out what are the actually it's so-called permanent phenomena. That means that it's not due to cause of cause and condition. Yeah. So I understand so far I know, I heard from another teaching, or someone told me that it's selflessness. Okay, and then the other one is a composed space.
Okay, selflessness.
Yeah, selflessness one, composed space, and the other one is emptiness.
I didn't get what you asked, but emptiness is.
Is it emptiness a permanent phenomena?
Emptiness is a permanent phenomena.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you define phenomena as not being a cause and effect phenomena, yes, but as a general term that everything that exists is a phenomena, then emptiness would be a permanent phenomena, and the us suffering and that will be a impermanent phenomena.
So you're saying if emptiness, then there's no suffering, there's no cause and condition. You're saying that?
What? I didn't get you.
No. Okay, so we say emptiness is a permanent phenomenon.
Yeah.
But it's just I want to understand more. How can emptiness become? Emptiness is a permanent phenomenon. Is it because there's no cause and condition?
Yeah. That's the reason.
So you are saying that emptiness is in a way fixed.
Fixed. Feels like is the reality of things. Not fixed mean, what do you define
when we
as
say
fixed?
permanent, then it doesn't change.
Yeah, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
Emptiness of things doesn't change. How much ever you stay on it, right? How much ever you contemplate on it, the emptiness of things will not change. It will remain empty, whether how much ever eons pass away, it will remain empty of its independent, intrinsic nature, right? It will remain empty of it. So that's a permanent phenomena. So for being impermanent, right, there is a need for it to have a cause and effect. If there is no cause and effect, if it's not a cause and effect, then that phenomena would be regarded as permanent, right? So for our suffering, we know that there is a cause causing that suffering. So as long as there is a cause causing something, that phenomena can be regarded as a impermanent.
So what about happiness then?
Happiness is also impermanent.
Happiness is also
Impermanent.
impermanent.
But you can attain the ultimate happiness, which is the pure happiness. Happiness, of course, is impermanent, because we know from experience that right now we are happy, and if somebody hits you and makes you angry, at the point we are not happy, right? So it changes. It depends, because when the cause of, suppose you being near your family and friends makes you happy, when the family and friends goes away and all your enemies surround you, you would get angry, right? So our, what do we say? This happiness depends on a lot of cause and conditions. So because there is a cause for happiness, happiness itself is impermanent.
So what about highest happiness?
Oh, okay.
Highest
Ultimate
happiness is something
happiness.
like enlightenment actually. It's
Okay,
ultimate happiness.
Ultimate happiness is
Yeah.
also impermanent, but it's not the impermanent state that we have. It is impermanence in a way that it's always changing, right? Always changing, not in a negative way, like it's changing from one moment to another and one moment to another, but it's not staying in a, what do we say? Fixed state. Is just changing, but the change is continuous and on the same spot, same thing, as we say, right? So it would be pure happiness, doesn't have the change of change. It won't change to suffering. Suppose our type of happiness, that depends on a lot of outside factors, right? The ultimate happiness depends on the inside, so it changes, momentarily change. Impermanence can be whenever we think of impermanence, we must not think of impermanence as from one thing changing from good to bad or bad to good. That's not how the way to think of impermanence. Impermanence states that everything is changing, right? So if we were able to finish the cause of, what do we say, ultimate happiness, then if we were able to, then the ultimate happiness would be like our happiness, but it's not the case. Did you get what I mean? So the ultimate happiness is changing, but it's not changing to unhappiness.
So do you classify that as a permanent phenomena or impermanent phenomena? Because it changes. It's not from moment to moment, right? It's not momentary change.
It's moment to moment, but
So is
it's
it
an
still
impermanent phenomena.
for enlightenment? It's an impermanent phenomena.
Yeah.
Can I say something? I think it's the term we should use is like conditioned,
Okay.
conditioned
Yeah.
phenomena and unproduced phenomena.
Oh.
Am I right to say that, Rinpoche?
Yeah. Unproduced meaning without cause and effect.
It's the same.
Yeah.
You say produce or condition is cause and condition, correct? It's still the cause and condition, right?
Yeah, it depends on the
Yeah.
cause. The impermanence of enlightenment. Enlightenment meaning there are two types of enlightenment that now you say about it. The permanent enlightenment, which is the cessation of suffering, which is the permanent enlightenment, right? There is a cessation of suffering which is permanent, and also there is a phenomenon that also changes, right? Because it's like what do you say? It's like it changes, momentarily change, but not from like drastic change, like the change that we have from suffering to non-suffering and suffering to non-suffering to suffering. It doesn't change like that. Do you get what I mean?
So it's considered as impermanent?
Yeah, enlightenment.
if I find that-
So there are two types of enlightenment.
So
If you are
initially,
saying from the cessation of suffering, which is also an in the Buddha's cessation of suffering, is the it's an enlightenment, right? It's an enlightenment. If you are talking about that, it's permanent.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay.
because normally my view of enlightenment is actually is the highest happiness, which is the Buddhahood. So
Yeah.
we are saying Buddhahood is actually a permanent phenomena.
Yeah, impermanent phenomenon meaning
Permanent,
not.
I mean, Buddhahood is a permanent phenomena.
Yeah, Buddhahood. There are two types of Buddhahood.
I've got two types.
Two types. The Buddhahood that is the end of suffering, right? The end of suffering is permanent. The end of suffering is permanent, but the Buddhahood, that's the mind. The mind, of course, is a changing phenomena, right? Mind is changing, but it won't change. When we say of change, we think of a big change, don't we? We think of a change from good to bad or bad to good. Not that type of change. It's a momentarily change which, what do we call the term? Ever-changing, yeah. Ever-changing phenomena. So did that make sense?
Yeah, okay, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Can I ask you one more question? What about
Yeah, of course.
composed space or conditioned space? Something. No, composed space means composed space actually is a permanent phenomena.
Okay. Composed space.
Composite space. Composite space. Because space got two types. One is composite and one is composite.
Then what is composed and what is
I don't know. That's why I asked.
I couldn't get the
Okay, space
term.
is space. Space.
Okay.
Impermanent phenomena or permanent phenomena, or there are two types.
Okay, space.
Yeah.
Okay. Space, like this space, right? Because there are two types of space again, right? So this type of space, there's a space here. I put something, then that becomes changed, right? So space, not. I'm thinking you are saying the Tibetan term namkha, which is considered as an empty space, which is almost the. Are you saying that the example of emptiness being same as the space? Are you saying that one? It's not that one. Okay, so if you regard space as that, then that is the impermanent. We are having a language barrier.
So
We are
space,
having a
there are two types of space also, right?
Yeah. So there are two types of space. If you are talking about the change of like this, it's occupying a space, then it's impermanent.
Yeah.
Then whereas you are just talking about not being able to touch it, not being able to stop it, that type of space is permanent.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise,
Yeah.
any? Or are we? Do we have to receive oral transmission?
Okay.
Any other questions? Because I think Rinpoche would want to clarify everybody's questions.
If you have one.
Ivan Louis?
Ivan
Do you have a
Louis.
question?
So what do we do while receiving oral transmission? Oral transmission, like what do we think and
Oh.
like 'cause
Uh,
most of us just don't dare.
When you receive oral transmission, think of it as you. Sometimes there are two types of oral transmission, right? One is like, because in the general, you have known about the meaning of it. So if you think of the meaning and try to practice every meaning of it, if you know the meaning, then that's enough, right? So that's called sheti. But for an usual oral transmission, just the oral transmission of the text, it's okay if you just hear the word, right? If you just hear the word, that's okay. Because right now, we have just gone to the general meaning not in depth, but we have gone to the general meaning and done that, then think of it as if you are getting continuity from Lord Nagarjuna till now, right? Continuity of sound, continuity of the transmission that's been passed down from Lord Nagarjuna till now. So we can think of that, but if you want the other way, you can do both ways. So that's the way that you should listen to oral transmissions. But most important thing while receiving oral transmissions is that you should not fall asleep. Yeah, that's one of the most important things, right? If you fall asleep and what do we say? We are not able to hear the sound. Then the oral transmission will not be transmitted. Transmissed, is it? Oh, transmitted. Okay, will not be transmitted. So that's the basic conditions that there are. Okay, was I clear?
Rinpoche, maybe you would like to share what is the benefit of receiving an oral transmission?
Okay.
Thank you.
When we receive an oral transmission, the benefits is like same as having a vow and not having a vow, right? If you have a vow of wanting to do something, suppose as a Buddhist you have the vow to not harm others. If you have a vow and not do it, right? Suppose you have the vow of non-killing, right? And you don't kill for 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so on, then every moment becomes a good merit that you have accumulated. Exactly like that, if you have an oral transmission of a certain text or anything, when you are thinking about that text and reading that text or thinking about the meaning about the text and everything like that, the merit of thinking about the text and the benefits will be higher, right? Will be stronger and higher. It's exactly like as if you talk a tantric vow, and if you indulge in the tantric vow, of course, you are getting, what do we say, more good merit, right? Instead of you not, is the same as if you don't have a tantric vow and you just chant Om Tare Tare, that means the merit is there, but it's small. But whereas if you receive a tantric vow and chant it, it will become more. Exactly like that, oral transmission. When you get oral transmission and later when you think about the meanings and every bit of sentences and through compassion, I'm not saying through anger and all, if you through compassion and through good thinking, good intent, then the merit will be more. So that's the benefit of having oral transmission. Okay, so I'll just be reading this for another 1 hour, I think. No, not 1 hour. It will just be some time. I hope it was not long enough. So basically, having the oral transmission also makes you leaves a good imprint on you, so that you can be able to practice it again in the next life and so on, right? So it's also a way of saying that. Also, whenever in Tibetan tradition, or not also only in the Tibetan tradition, but also in the late Nalinda's tradition, it's considered important to have a transmission which is continued through to the Buddha, to be able to practice on anything. So it's important in that sense also. So that's what I was going to say. Okay. So.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Yeah, let's have an applause for Rinpoche. Thank you so much.